you said you were going to get 8 on the back. And I think it was because you thought you were going to win it for the 8th time this year. There it is. Oh dear. 111 points we could get if we win both the last 2 games. That would be absolutely remarkable.
How can you see us win the equivalent of the Champions League and not the FA Cup? It is kind of crazy.
Tom Wagner did a speech on the pitch at the end as well. And I know we
I would expect nothing less of him. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Second City podcast with me, Callum.
And me, Daniel Sketchley.
I hope you had a wonderful Easter, and just like Jesus himself, Dan has returned from the dead to be on the podcast this week. I have returned from holiday after my pilgrimage to Amsterdam. But Dan, you've not been very well the last week or so. How are you feeling?
No, a slight exaggeration, rising from the dead. That's kind of why, apologies, we didn't do a show last week, didn't do an episode. Just really busy. Callum was on holiday. Yeah, and I just came down with some horrendous, I don't know what it was. Well, it
wasn't promotion fever either.
It wasn't promotion fever. It wasn't Centurion fever. You just made this joke every time I put in the group. I don't know why I was telling this, but I was like, man, I am buggered, man. I'm like bedridden. And he was like, oh, is it promotion fever? Is it Champions fever?
The thing is because for the last few months, every FA Cup weekend is like, oh lads, I'm coming down with something, and it's FA Cup fever.
True. You definitely did not come down with FA Cup fever in the end, sadly. So yeah, apologies if, and also it is absolutely like sweltering today. Apologies if I look absolutely dreadful. I doubt anyone cares, but anyway, mix of the two. How was your trip to Amsterdam? Did you have a good time?
Really good time. Probably not your conventional trip to Amsterdam, but it was just the nice little break that I needed. Went to the Johan Cruyff Arena, did the stadium tour there. Nice. Unfortunately, they were away from Ajax were away from home. They were playing Utrecht away and got battered 4-0. So I didn't get to go to a game, but I did get to go to the stadium, and man, what a stadium that is. Yeah, really small pitch though. Like the stadium's really cool and really tall, but the pitch I felt was really small.
Yeah.
And they got this cool wall in the tunnel of every Ajax player to make it to the 100 club, 100 games for Ajax. And of course, the man himself, Anwar El Ghazi, is on the wall. So people were looking for Dennis Bergkamp and Johan Cruyff. I was there looking for the main man himself, Anwar El Ghazi.
Very good.
And of course, Bertrand Traoré plays for Ajax at the moment. So I got a great picture of his shirt in the dressing room. It's why you go to Ajax.
It's why anyone would go to Ajax, obviously. I spot a little shirt behind you there as well.
I did. I bought 2 shirts. One of them is somewhere else and is a Barcelona shirt that I got in a vintage store, an absolute steal.
Very nice.
But it is Ajax's 125th anniversary this year, and so I did cop a 125th anniversary shirt. The last medium they had in the Adidas store. The Ajax store had no home shirts, no anniversary shirts, only away in third, and the Adidas store had no home shirts in a medium, and they had one of these left in a medium. So I had to cop it.
Lovely. I don't blame you at all. I feel it's a bit of a tradition for us to get a shirt wherever we go. Absolutely. Sweet. So this week, what we're going to talk about, Cal, we're going to talk about obviously the FA Cup. We're going to talk about Blues lifting the trophy. So I've had a slightly better week than you, I think it's fair to say. Obviously, Villa announced some stuff with the stadium, I believe, as well.
Yep.
So we'll get into that. Obviously, Blues saw Duke retire as well. He's going to retire at the end of the season. Played his last game at St Andrews on Sunday. Despite my illness, I was able to go to the game. I was just about well enough to go to the game. So we'll get into all that. We'll talk a little bit, just touch on Tony Mowbray as well, who's obviously left West Brom as well. So we'll touch on that. Before we get started though, we've never done this before, but we also wanted to just dedicate this episode as well. We're recording this on the 29th of April, 2025. And this today marks 10 years since the passing of Eamonn Driscoll. His son Liam is a good friend of ours, a regular listener to the podcast, goes to the Villa with Callum on occasion and so on. Eamonn was a lovely man, and he's missed every day. I distinctly remember coming out of school and he'd be in his car and he'd shout like blue nose or some sort of derogatory Blues insults at me. But no, he's a lovely man and he's missed every day. So rest in peace, Eamonn. Cool. Shall we get into... Do I go chronologically, I guess? Villa were first this week.
Well, are we doing what we're wearing this week, Dan?
Oh, well, I don't know, because we're both wearing shirts we've worn before. Do you want to just touch on it briefly?
Yeah, I mean, this shirt has changed a bit since I originally had it on the pod, so it makes sense to kind of do the feature, and it is relevant to this week. This shirt, as I guess yours probably is as well.
It is as well, yeah, it is.
So we could tie it all into one, I suppose. This is obviously the this is the 150th anniversary shirt that we had for the third round of the FA Cup this year, celebrating 150 years of Aston Villa. I did have this on probably the episode straight after that 150th
Yeah.
game, but it has changed since then. I did cop the FA Cup patch on the sleeve,
Uh,
um, which does indicate, I don't know if you can see how many times we've won the competition, which is 7 times, which is a nice little touch. And I do have a number on the back as well. Do you remember the number I had on the back, Dan, when I told you?
I don't. I do actually. I do, and it's quite funny why. I think you said you were going to get 8 on the back, and I think it was because you thought you were going to win it for the 8th time this year. There it is. Oh dear, that hasn't
Yeah.
aged well.
No,
Who's number
no,
8? There must be another reason. Like, yeah,
yeah,
who's
there
number
is
8?
another. The number 8 is Yuri Tielemans, who's been our player of the season. Spoiler alert for the end of season review, probably. Um, and so obviously, it's an anniversary shirt reflecting on the 100 years of Aston Villa. So really, if you're getting a number on the back, there's no names, just numbers, special font. You're kind of looking at numbers 2 to 11 in for me anyway. I would have had the number 7, which is John McGinn, but he was injured and didn't play. So for the way my thought process had to be between 2 and 11, had to be someone that had played. I was tempted to get Ollie Watkins, number 11, but I do have an Ollie Watkins shirt on a black kit upstairs. So I kind of felt like I ticked that box already. And Tielemans has been our player of the season. I've loved watching him play for us. So I kind of went with him. It is not a tribute to Henry Lansbury, Morgan Sanson, or Karim El Ahmadi, who played for us. But James Milner was one of my first heroes growing up. He wore the number 8 at Villa, as did Juan Pablo Angel. So it's a nice little few little trips down memory lane. And I also wanted the number 8 because I was fully convinced we were going to win the FA Cup this year.
Oh dear, sad times. I was surprised as well to see just how comfortably Palace just dispatched of you. But we'll get onto all
Yeah.
that in a bit, I suppose. Yeah, my what we're wearing. Sorry, bit of a quick one this week. I'm wearing a. Oh well, what do you think I'm wearing, Cal? Any ideas?
I mean, it's probably a promotion shirt, but I'm not convinced it is actually
Oh,
because of the Adidas and the 888 Sports. So I'm thinking maybe it's more of a Lukas Jutkiewicz theme. Is it? It's obviously not one he scored a second City derby in because the one time he did that was an away shirt, I
it
believe.
was. Yeah,
So is it his first season with you
it is.
potentially?
Yes, it is. What year do you think that was?
It's about. It's, oh, it's got to be about 10 years ago. Maybe not quite 10. It might be 9 years, 10 seasons, something like that.
Very
Um,
close. Yeah. Yeah, 2016-17 home this shirt is. So yeah, it's 9 years, 9 seasons. And yeah, lovely. I always loved this kit. This season was an awful season, but I always loved the home kit. Probably, I don't know, it's just a good. We were kind of in the middle of uni and just kind of got a lot of fond memories and stuff. Although this was on the pitch, this was the like Zola. What was it? It was Rowett Zola Redknapp, wasn't it?
Redknapp.
Even I'm
Yeah.
starting to forget all these years later. But yeah, I thought it'd be nice to get it on because Duke signed for us initially on loan actually this season, came in and made a huge impact, signed permanently in the January, and then the rest is history. But we'll get onto all that in a little bit.
But we're
So
not we're
cool.
not associated with that podcast.
No, no, we're not. Sadly, no, sadly we're not. Took me a minute to get that. Very good, Cal. Good for you. Let's get on to the FA Cup semi-final then. What happened, Cal? You went to Wembley with your dad, I believe, on Saturday, sorry. What went wrong apart from everything?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this as well. I think this was possibly the 8th time I've been to Wembley with Villa. Because obviously
Wow, blimey.
we've actually been quite a lot since in our lifetime, especially and all of it's been since 2010. Went twice in 2010 and twice in 2015 and playoffs and all that. And before this weekend, the one game that I never really remembered at all was the FA Cup semi-final against Chelsea where we lost 3-0. And so I'd always rank that one probably at the bottom, even though we've gone to games and we've lost at Wembley and lost badly like we did in the FA Cup final 10 years ago. You still have good days and but that 2015 one I ranked probably bottom. I had a good day. The day
Yeah,
at Wembley was great. The weather was lovely. We were in the pub. We had our big flag out and about. We had Unai. Dad had made Unai Emery masks. We were wearing them. It was a great day. And then, but I was nervous going to Wembley, Dan. I'll be honest. I was a bit nervous. I thought we'd win, but there was something not feeling right on the day. And Yeah, and we walked into the stadium and something just felt off and the atmosphere was off. The Palace fans were great. Their pre-match stuff was brilliant, as which we will touch on was a bit of a disaster, a bit of a mess. Our atmosphere in the stands was not great, and the performance on the pitch was pitiful at best. It was just a horrendous day, and I am not someone to leave before the final whistle, but this was the first time in a long, probably since I was a season ticket holder, maybe under Gerard Houllier, that we've left before the final whistle. So just as soon as the third goal went in, which was in stoppage time, we decided to make our way to the exit. So, which is quite funny. I saw a video today actually, which is full-time scenes in the Palace end as the whistle went, and you it pans over to the east side of Wembley, and it is basically empty. Um, the first time I think I've been in the first time Villa I think have been on the east side of Wembley since I have been going to the new Wembley, and certainly not one to remember. Um, but
It's
like I
weird,
said,
like, sorry, it's
no, no,
weird.
no, go
Everything you
for it, go
said
for
there,
it.
if you replaced Villa with Blues, it was exactly our experience. Like, it's weird how little things like we didn't really do like a pre-match thing, and if anything, that was quite good when we went, to be fair. But like the whole sort of build up. But it was weird as soon as the game started with us, and I bet it was the same for you. That thing you just can't put your finger on. Something just feels off. The atmosphere wasn't quite right during the game, even at 0-0. Yeah, hard to put your finger on. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, and I mean the new Wembley's always been difficult for atmosphere. Just the way that stadium is designed, it's always been difficult. Even on the good days we've had at Wembley, where the atmosphere has been good, it's not been anything like you'd get at Villa Park, or I assume for you at St Andrews. Maybe because the stadium's so big, but it's more to do with the way the noise just sort of filters out of it.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, I mean, we'll talk pre-match. I mean, the Crystal Palace pre-match was amazing. The fan tifo, the flags, the pyros, which, look great. I'm all for it because they look great. The smoke bombs, I love them. But obviously, everyone goes, "Oh, look how great that was." Technically, they're not really meant to be there.
yeah, yeah.
And I think to us and our Champions League campaign this year, and the one thing that we have all loved and I thought have been amazing have been the pre-match tifos. So I don't really understand why for an FA Cup semi-final, our first appearance at Wembley in 5 years, our first semi-final in 10 years, we haven't done a one-off tifo. We'd reused one of the Champions League ones. Okay, fine, you can maybe go down like a recycling route. But then we've picked the worst out of the 5 or 6 tifos we've had this year at Villa Park. We've picked the one from the Bologna game where not the stadium wasn't sold out. It's just of 3 lines. When I think if you're going to reuse one, the gas lamp one from the Club Bruges game was amazing, and it's got like the pictures of when we last won the FA Cup in this kit up here. And the line one's smaller than some of the other ones, and so it only fills half of the lower stand in or the lower bowl in Wembley. And then I know there was the new fan group of Villa supporters couldn't agree something with the club, and that's caused a bit of a mess. So there's a bit of a half kind of like Unai Emery like banner up, which they did. We had these on the seats. This is
The
going to
flags.
be
Yeah,
nice little flags. But having said that, the flags are great, but if you're just waving the flag, you're not making an atmosphere
no,
either.
yeah,
And arguably, if you're doing like I'm not really I'd rather have a flag than a poster. But if you're doing like a pre-match like thing in the stands, the posters that you all hold up make a much better one than the flags. And because not everyone picks the flag up, I don't know, it doesn't really work. The scarves that we had in the last 2 Champions League games were great because people hold the scarves up or they swing them around and it's great and you get that sort of. So we're obviously looking at the Crystal Palace one where they've got the poster style flags, they've got a huge tifo, they've got a banner up, they've got pyros, and ours looks pretty pathetic really at the end of the day.
yeah.
It could have been that we were playing Manchester City and they did nothing and we'd done that and we'd have gone, oh great, yeah, we reused a tifo, but look at me, look what they did. But um So that was off, and then the performance was nothing short of dreadful. And we can talk about team selection, about whether this player should have played, whether that player should have played. Ultimately, it was just we just weren't at it, and I don't know for whatever reason why we weren't at it. Um, we were lucky not to be more goals down at half time. The first goal we concede is really bad. Pau Torres makes a really poor mistake. He was one of a couple of players that had a really, really poor game. Um, Boubacar Kamara was another one. I don't really like digging players out or naming names too much. But Boubacar Kamara definitely, I think, had his worst performance in an Aston Villa shirt. And to go back to Stat Corner, I think the last time we did sort of the Stat Corner was during uh, huge defeat away at Crystal Palace of what, January, February. We're going back to it after another defeat to Crystal Palace because I saw this stat I think yesterday and it just I almost fell off my seat. Um, so last season in the Premier League, Aston Villa made 13 errors, leading to an opponent's shot on goal across 38 games. This season, Villa have made 40 errors, leading to an opponent's shot on goal across the 34 games so far this season, a 207% increase on last season. And of course, the first goal was Crystal Palace's first shot on target, which has, I mean, that has just been the story of our season in terms of defensive woes. We've conceded a lot of chances, and a lot of the first chances have gone in the back of the net. We had a couple of moments at 1-0. We had Konza had a header in the first half that was saved by Dean Henderson. He made two cracking saves right at the start of the second half, one from John McGinn and one from Luca Dean, which was an absolute rocket, and it's a really good save. But then after that, we went down the other. They go down the other end and get a penalty. We can't argue about that because it's very similar to the one we had up against Manchester City, which we all said was a penalty. And to be honest, everyone in the stands kind of thought it was a penalty anyway, at least the block that I was in. Um, and the penalty's missed, and you think this is the turning point. It's 1-0. Let's get going. And we still couldn't click into gear. And Yuri Tielemans gives the ball away twice, and the game ends 3-0. A really, really deflating defeat, a really disappointing defeat. Obviously, we'd lost away at Manchester City on the Tuesday, which put argue. I don't want to put the final nail in the coffin, but a major dent in any hopes of making the Champions League next year. And then maybe, our first chance at silverware in a generation, our first FA Cup in, I mean, 57. That's what, two, three generations, really. Um, a huge missed opportunity, a huge missed opportunity. And of course, that FA Cup comes with Europa League football as like a nice little bonus for winning the competition, which if Crystal Palace now go and win, is going to cause a real problem for the European spots in the Premier League, which could be problematic for us as well. So all in all, it was a bit of a disaster,
Yeah.
all around.
Yeah, anticlimax was the word I kept coming back to. Not for the experience of the day. Always that's always a great memory, but yeah, I feel like with both Blues and Villa, our Wembley trips this year have just come at bad times.
Yeah.
Um, and also
Ours
you
came maybe a
mentioned
week late for us,
exactly the same,
maybe.
exactly the same. And you mentioned like things like you're always conceding to your first shot on target against you, despite both clubs having good seasons. Blues and Villa, that is not Villa and Palace. There's clear things that need to improve for next season. Like with Blues, it's like set pieces and crossing and so on. Clear things that have just got to improve next year.
Yeah.
It cannot be the same next year. If you're gonna have any hope of building.
And we've had a lot of players that maybe haven't hit the heights that they have in recent seasons. I think people will look at maybe Watkins or Emi Martinez, but I mean, blimey, Emi Martinez hasn't had his best season for Aston Villa. If you took him out of the team, we'd be mid-table at best, really, and
Yeah,
we'd have been out in the early knock. We certainly wouldn't have made the top eight of the Champions League. We probably would have been knocked out well before the quarterfinals. So even when a player, and he's someone who's just set extremely high standards for himself. So uh, like maybe an average season for him in which he's made some of the best saves I've ever seen a goalkeeper make this year is maybe not the highest. And Ollie Watkins is still hit double digits and is one goal away from becoming our all-time Premier League top goal scorer, which he's now joint with Gabriel Bodlahor. He's got 4 games left this season to do it. So yeah, they maybe haven't hit the highs that we know they can hit, but they've still had they still had good seasons.
yeah,
Um, Obviously, Marcus Rashford wasn't in the squad at the weekend. It looks like he's out for the season with a hamstring injury, so we've probably seen the last of him in a Villa shirt. To be honest, I don't think I ever really expected it to become permanent. I know we have the option, the £40 million option, but I just think in terms of the wages and maybe the idea was to play him and Watkins together, and it hasn't worked, and he's had to go with one or the other. And we ultimately know that Ollie Watkins is Unai Emery's man for the main number 9. We're a better team when he plays. I know he didn't have a good game at the weekend, but we never gave him any chances anyway. because the creative players were well off it. Marco Asensio, I don't think he touched the ball all game. And for someone who came in to this team and was like a firecracker, has almost felt like a luxury player in the last 2 or 3 weeks. He sort of started to disappear, and so it feels very negative at the moment. When we were doing the podcast 2 or 3 weeks ago, everything was great, even though we were out the Champions League, and so the game against Fulham at the weekend is become massive because a win won't necessarily heal these wounds because we, as fans, and especially as a younger fan, have been very trophy starved. I've been desperate to see us win something, and the FA Cup is something that Villa fans of all ages have been desperate to see us win because most of us have never seen it now.
Yeah.
Um, so I've said on this podcast before, the FA Cup is the only thing my dad needs to complete the set. He's seen us win everything other than the FA Cup. How can you see us win the equivalent of the Champions League and not the FA Cup? It is kind of crazy.
Yeah, and
And
he'd be some way off as well, wouldn't he? I mean,
yeah,
eight, yeah,
uh,
57. Was he born?
he's about
He probably was born.
no, he was born in like early 60s, about
Yeah, yeah,
63 or something.
yeah, yeah.
So
Oh,
missed it by a distance, really.
yeah.
Um, But it
Maybe
felt like it had
someday.
lined up so nicely for us this year. Obviously, we'd had the
Yeah,
150th anniversary. We'd beat two Premier League teams. We'd then drawn two teams that might yet, one of them has been just been relegated from the Championship, and one of them could be relegated from the Championship this weekend. And then maybe if you're looking at the three other teams in the semi-finals, we probably got on paper a favourable draw there as well. We didn't
yeah.
get Manchester City, and I mean, we didn't get Nottingham Forest, who are both above us in the league table. Obviously, we've got a bogey team who we've lost to
I was gonna say they
twice already
battered you
this
in the
season,
league,
and
didn't you? Yeah.
battered us at Selhurst Park. Um, got a point at Villa Park and beat us in the League Cup. And then I guess if you include the last day of last year, put five past us. So I think it's something ridiculous like across these games we've lost 16-4 on aggregate against Oliver Glasner's
Blimey.
Crystal Palace.
Wow.
So
I
yeah, not
I
not great.
I remember Eze when he was at QPR, and this would be Bellingham was playing for us at the time. So you're talking like 2019, and they came to St Andrews and they beat us 2-0, and Eze was unreal. I was like, I'd never heard of him before, and I was like, when I saw the name crop up a couple of years later, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. He was unreal. If I had more energy and I was feeling better, I would gloat, but I
Yeah.
sadly
Oh,
don't.
and obviously,
Um,
Ismaila Sarr scored twice and assisted one for the. It was three goal involvements as well. So I am sick of the sight of that man, and I wish Steven Gerrard had signed him when he was about to in 2022, and then pulled the plug last minute, just so he never scored against us again.
well,
Anyway,
what we could
let's
do with
talk about your
hindsight.
promotion party.
Let's talk about the team that did lift a trophy. There's only one team that has lifted a trophy at the new Wembley, not counting the playoffs. That's from Birmingham, and there's only one team in Birmingham that lifted a trophy this weekend. So that was my little segue.
I mean, it was
Um,
impossible for us to have done that this weekend anyway.
oh yeah, cool. Never mind. I butchered that. You can tell I've been off it this week. Yeah, Blues. Won. We've won League One. Hooray! I think I said that on the last Blues episode. To be fair. Um, I think we've missed 3 games whilst we've been off. I do apologise for those watching on YouTube, but I can't shut these blinds anymore. The sun is coming and doing my head in as well. Um, yeah, I think we played 3 games since we were last on. So we played Crawley at home, didn't we? We drew 0-0. But then on last Thursday we beat Stevenage away 1-0. Alex Cochrane with a long range strike just a few minutes after being subbed on, and that took us to 102 points. The first time in our history we've gone over 100 points, and put us within 1 point of the all-time League One or Third Division points record, which is absolutely remarkable. And then we beat that on Sunday, excuse me, against Mansfield. We beat them 4-0 at St Andrews, and that puts us to 105 points. That means with the last 2 games to go, we need 2 points to break the all-time points record for the EFL. That is in English football history. And I know it's League One. I know, it's like Reading getting 106 in the second division is probably, what's this money thing? Don't give me
Yeah.
that. It's still it's still a huge achievement. The level of consistency is outstanding. And I like it's not done until it's done, but I am confident we'll get it. We got Cambridge on the last day away, who are like bottom and relegated or second bottom or something. So I'm incredibly confident we'll get it. If we get I mean, 107 is the target. If we were getting like 110, oh, but we can't get
I mean,
110, but
it's mad, isn't it?
111 points we could get if we win both the last two games. That would be absolutely remarkable. Like
I don't
that.
think anybody would have predicted that at the start of the year,
No, and I don't know
even
when
with the money
that'll.
that was spent.
Yeah, exactly. But that, instead, I would say the money that's been spent, you back it up by doing this, you know.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Um,
100%.
and so I think that deserves a lot of credit. But yeah, Sunday itself, Mansfield at home. Mansfield are like just above the relegation zone. They're not going to go down. Um, and we just completely turned it on against them 4-0. Absolute pleasure in the sun. It's kind of what I needed at the end of a rough week. It was like a real.
Yeah.
My weekend, my weeks start. I started to feel healthier when the Villa result came in, and then I just started to
Oh,
get a little
funny
better.
that.
Yeah. But no, we were absolutely terrific. 2-0 up at half time. The fourth goal, which Iwata scored, is absolutely lovely. Dowell flicks it in, sort of backheels it into him, and he poaches it past the keeper. It was an absolute masterclass. It was. Look, I know it was against Mansfield at the end of the season, but it was just fun in the sun. The place was rocking, full house. And then we got to, obviously lift the trophy at the end of it, which was I've never seen, obviously, at St Andrews. I know it is only League One, but it's like you've got to enjoy these times, and it's like the EFL Trophy. I was like, you still got to enjoy it. Like, don't take it for granted. These things don't come around often, no matter what level they are. And I actually, and I've said this, and a few people have said this. Sunday felt like what Wembley should have felt like, if you know what I mean. In terms of the match, the performance was what we expected at Wembley, and the celebrations and the success, I think, was what we all expected at Wembley. So we had to wait another 2 weeks for it, really. Um, and yeah, I was absolutely delighted. I'll touch on it all now. Maybe in the summer we'll do a bigger sort of retrospective on his career at Blues at some point. But it was obviously Lukas Jutkiewicz's last time at St Andrews playing. He'd mentioned, well, he'd released a statement in the week that he was going to retire at the end of the season. He's been with Blues for 9 years, and he's been an ever present through really difficult times. There's not a single Blues fan that doesn't absolutely love him. And I think it's just a great way for him to go. He got to lift. So Bielik actually, as the club captain, did lift the trophy, but then Duke and Clara like held the handles, and so they kind of got to do it like in the moment as well. Um, just an absolute, proper blues, spelling blues like BLOOS. That's how like you'd say it. Um, yeah, like 9 years. I think it's 69 goals, 357 appearances. And I think it's just the right time. I wasn't even. It was emotional. Like he did a speech on the pitch at the end with the microphone and thanked everyone. And he seems like an absolutely stand-up guy. But I was also. It just felt like exactly the right time. It was emotional, but I wasn't like devastated or anything. Which
And it
considering
wasn't a
he is
shock.
no, and I think considering he's one of my, if not my favorite blues player ever, and I think there'll be a lot of others that would agree with me. It just felt very right, and I was very pleased with it all and very happy with it all. And the fact we got his goal against Barnsley a couple of weeks ago was really special as well. And it just had some great memories with him. I remember like we played Bristol City years ago away, and we won 3-1. And I love this goal. Lee Camp like kicks it along. It was like the last minute. And we were already 2-1 up, and he like brings the ball down and turns his man, and then chips it over the keeper to confirm it. It's 3-1. Amazing goal. His penalty against Leeds in the first game under Knighthead was brilliant. His two goals against Derby, which kept us up in 2021, I think it was. He's been our top scorer 3 seasons, 3 separate seasons. His partnership with Shay Adams in sort of 2018-19 was unbelievable. He's just been great, and I know the last few years have tailed off a bit, and he's not been as effective and as important, but I'm really glad he's been there. And they obviously announced in the statement he's going to stay in some capacity. He's going to have a new role at the club, which I think is wonderful. Chris Davies has said himself what a stand-up leader he is and a top senior player he's been for him to rely on. So he'll be missed, the Duke, but it's been great. I love every time he gets subbed on. If Dukey scores, we're on the pitch. I love all that stuff. But no, it's been great, and I'm so glad he's sticking around in some capacity. So look, it was a great day. That little weird pitch invasion aside, we need to do something about that every single time. It always comes from the same corner on the last day of the season every year. Um, but no, it's a great day, and the future is very bright. And then, of course, I don't know if you saw Tom Wagner did a speech on the pitch at the end as well. And I know we
Oh, I
sort
would
of,
expect nothing less of him.
I know we sort of touched on Tom Wagner the other week at the EFL Trophy, and we were a little bit critical, and we had some pushback on that. But I this was different. This was like it was for the fans. It was a direct message for the fans, and I thought that was wonderful. And the first thing he said was took the microphone. He said, "Never forget that this is your club," and it's just like the perfect way to open the monologue, if you know what I mean. And he didn't talk for long, but he said something like, he said, "This is not the best day that we'll share together. It's not even fucking close." And then he walked off, and it was like, wow. Um, yeah, so it's very exciting, and I know, especially you, I think you think he's a bit of a showman, a bit front and center, but I think he does. I think it's very carefully. He's very good at all the PR stuff. I know we were a little critical about, a little divided on the Wembley thing the other week, but I think when he's able to drop things like that, I think he's smart enough to know that using himself is quite smart. In these circumstances, he was actually, I think it was today or yesterday. I saw he'd had a meeting at 10 Downing Street with Rachel Reeves
Yeah.
about like the sports quarter and all that stuff. And I think like that all comes hand in hand. He's trying to be like maybe a public figure to,
Well, he did an interview, I think it was with the Times, I want to say, last early last week, where he's talking about he wants to see Villa and Blues play each other in Europe, um and also some of the things we mentioned about it would have been a year ago when the new stadium and the sports court was announced, that a little bit like we'll touch on with Villa in a minute, is until the transport gets sorted, none of this can actually happen.
yeah.
Which I said a year ago has always been my fear with this sports quarter at Wheels Park, is that it could all not happen purely because of the transport issues that there are at the moment.
Yeah, and exactly. I think part of it, a large part of it, I think is maintaining a public presence as like a pressure thing. Like he knows what he wants, and he's going to have to be like with the powers that be. He's got to be a presence, and I think the more I can understand the logic of the more connected he is with the fans, and the more the fans get behind him, the more powerful he is in a weird way.
Probably.
So I can see the logic of it all. But no, Sunday was wonderful. We still got two games left, as I mentioned. We got Blackpool on Wednesday, and we're away at Cambridge on Saturday. So let's go get that record. That would be unbelievable. So yeah, see you around, Duke. But thanks for the memories. Absolutely wonderful.
And I guess that kind of takes us nicely onto the new North Stand that's going to happen at Villa Park. So the original idea for a brand new North Stand, which was one of Christian Perslow's brainchild,
The
um,
brainchild of Christian Purslow.
the brainchild of Christian Perslow, along with the
Indiana
circle
Jones and the
back.
brainchild of Christian Purslow. There's our title for
um,
this week.
yeah.
Awesome.
um, Along with the circle badge that got ditched by Chris Eck. And anyway, the North Stand plans got shelved very quickly with that circular badge in around December 2023. They've got a new idea. So we are sort of getting a new North Stand. The idea is there is going to be almost a complete rebuild, but of the current stand. So I think the main problem was is we just got back into Europe, and we were then going to effectively demolish the stand and not have it in a year where we were going to go into Europe and probably have loads of people wanting to go to games, and the capacity was being reduced, and the opportunity for revenue as a result was going to take a hit. So the new plan is to keep the stand fully open while they do the renovation works. They're going to make the stand bigger. They're going to make, you can look at the CGI images of it online, and it looks great. And if they do pull it off, and if they do pull it off, it will be great, and it'll be just what that stand needs. Because I mean, I was in there for the PSG game, and I don't know how people do it. To be honest, it's so dated beyond belief. It's so cramped. The facilities are not great. They are the best they could possibly be for a stand that was built in like the 80s or whatever it was. But obviously, it comes with the huge caveat of Whitton Station needs to be redeveloped, which the council had promised to do. It was part of I believe it was the current mayor's manifesto, and obviously that will tie hand in hand whether you like it to or not with Birmingham City and Wheels Park, because um, the two of them are quite linked. If we can't build the new stand because of don't have the money to do Whitton Station up, there's no way that one will happen, because the two go hand in hand. And in the same way, if and when does get approval to go through, it will probably open the door then a bit more for Wheels Park. Um, Obviously, the kind of ultimatum from the club is if the stand cannot be done in time, we cannot then host Euro 2028, which is massive for the city as a whole, not just for Aston Villa Football Club, that we will host European Championship games. So exciting times if it happens. Obviously, the old academy building's being turned into a concert venue as we speak at the moment. The shop has had a complete refit over the last 12 months, or less than 12 months or so. And the second part of that, which is the old ticket office, got opened like a week or two ago. I haven't been to see the new part of it yet. I don't think I'll be paying 15 quid for a green screen photo with Emmy Martinez, but you never know. Maybe if I have too many beers in the warehouse, I'll stumble into the shop and pay for something like that.
Some
Um,
weirdo would, for sure. Someone out there
but
will.
but ultimately, that's not for us. That's for, like when we go to Ajax and
Yeah.
the San Siro and stuff. That is for sort of day trippers and tourists. And I'm fine if I'd rather the club do that than put like mini hospitality in the whole tent like they did the other year. Like
Yeah.
you do your green screen photos and things like that, but don't be putting hospitality in away ends and things like that. Some of the things I have done this year. So exciting. I'll I'll wait with bated breath to see if it will happen, because it feels like a bit of a familiar story and we've been here before. But I hope it happens, because ultimately it'll take the capacity to 50,000 and I'll probably get a season ticket. So that'll be quite exciting.
Or you could have supported Blues and you'd have never had any difficulty getting one years ago. As we go into this golden era following Blues. Here
Mm.
we go. Anyway, that's pretty much everything I think on Blues and Villa then. Shall we have a very quick look at things going on elsewhere?
Yeah,
Wolves are
because the
absolutely
championship.
ticking
Yeah,
by.
oh yeah, yeah. We'll do Wolves first.
No,
Yeah,
no, but
they've
I
got.
literally don't have much to say. Just they're like
Yeah.
the best team
Well,
ever,
Well,
basically.
Wolves, they're currently on form, the best team in Europe.
Yeah, that's what I'm
But
saying. I don't
Victor
have much to
Pereira's
say
done a
about
great
them.
job there. He has
It's
done a
been
great job there.
unbelievable. And I mean, they're mathematically safe now. Ipswich are gone. Yeah, and
But they
the,
had never looked likely to go down for weeks,
exactly, yeah,
really. If
exactly.
anything, it was sort of, you're looking at maybe West Ham or even Spurs that would potential. Not that it looked like Ipswich were ever really going to get out of it, especially
Yeah,
after Wolves beat Ipswich the other week.
exactly. But yeah, like you were about to say, the championship is the real juice. Coventry looking pretty good for playoffs at this point. I think it looks like.
I think it will go down to the final day
Yeah,
with them and Millwall, won't it? I
yeah.
mean, Millwall and there's potentially Millwall and Bristol City in the playoffs. I mean, that's
Millwall always like there or thereabouts. Oh, it feels like mo every other year they're there or thereabouts, and they never do anything in the playoffs when they get there anyway. Um, but what a turnaround commentary about this season. We said it months ago. We said they'd do it. They turn it around. But yeah, this it'll be next Saturday, won't it? The final game. It's gonna be absolute carnage in the championship. Very exciting. But the main story we wanted to talk about was obviously Tony Mowbray left West Brom. I know it was about a week or so ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Um,
a bit of a shock that, because they'd given him like a 2.5, 3 year deal originally, but obviously they
yeah,
haven't made the playoffs. They're not going to make the playoffs. Um, a bit of a disappointing year for them potentially, but we always said that Carlos Corberan was overperforming with that squad potentially.
absolutely.
Um,
I mean, I messaged a few Baggies fans, and they were like, we love Mowbray, but and they weren't saying he should have gone. They weren't saying that, but they were saying it has been awful, like the last couple of months. I looked into it. I think they won 5 games under Mowbray in like about 16 games or something like that. So it's just under a third, which is not promotion form by any means. I almost, it's kind of not what the narrative should have been though with Mowbray. So obviously Mowbray was at Blues just over a year ago and sadly had to step down due to his health. One like great news that he was well again to return to management and had made a full recovery, which is fantastic. And then seeing him go back to Baggies, a team that were just underperforming a bit, not underperforming, sorry, like but were just outside of like the playoffs and so on, maybe overperforming if anything with the squad that they got. Um, and the narrative felt like Mowbray coming back. Obviously, he was there before, got them promoted in
would take them up.
2009. Yeah, it just felt like absolutely. And if it's not this year, he'll do it next year when he's got a pre-season. So it's a real shame for this to happen. Tony Mowbray I'm not saying it's the wrong decision. It looks like they're really struggling, but I also wonder why do it now? Like they're like 10th in the league. Why not
I
wait till
wonder
the
if
end
it's
of the
just
season and
yeah, I wonder if it's just
uh,
because they know it's a weird one. You're seeing it a lot in the championship at the moment and it was gonna happen. It was rumoredly gonna happen after the playoff final last year. Was if Southampton lost the playoff final, Russell Martin was gonna get sacked, even though they were. potentially a game away from being promoted. I mean, there's even rumours that Daniel Farke's going to get sacked from Leeds, having just won the well, they haven't quite, but they're going to win the league.
Mm.
And I remember, I feel like I remember seeing this even when we were in the Championship a few years ago. Is clubs don't make it into the playoffs, and they sack the manager. Happened to Liam Rosenior last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's gone really well, Hull, hasn't it?
Yes.
That's gone
Yeah.
really well. Um,
Yeah.
so, but I agree. You were pointed midway through the season. Surely some of the talk would have been, if we don't quite do it this year, we'll build in the summer and go again. But clearly, it's not meant to be. I don't think he'll be the only manager of a team that doesn't make the playoffs to lose their job, because it's just something you see every year. Or a team that doesn't go up to, if Sheffield United don't go up through the playoffs, you can see Chris Wilder getting the axe there, for example.
Yeah.
But obviously West Brom they're in a difficult place now, because the parachute payments are all gone since they last
Yeah.
come down from the Premier League. So the money's all drying up. Not that their owners had really invested much or well anyway. I think it's
Well,
fair
that's
to
what I was going
say.
to say. What year did they come down? Was it 21 they came down?
The lockdown year, 2021, yeah.
Yeah, so like that's like so they're in their fourth. This is their fourth season in the championship. They have a fifth, and once it gets, that's the longest run they've had in the championship for a long time. Bear in mind they spent most of the 2010s in the Premier League. And yeah, the longer it goes on, I know from experience as a Blues fan, like the longer you go with that, there's parachute payments. It gets more and more difficult, and you filter down the queue. I did have a quick look at a few names that have been banded around for possible successors. The favourite is a man by the name of Marty Cifuente. Do you know where he is currently, Cal?
It's the QPR manager, isn't it?
He is the QPR manager, and he's done pretty good. I mean, QPR are a team that felt like had been on the verge of getting relegated for years. Obviously, he took over from Gareth Ainsworth, who had what we had like some tribesmen doing something in the
Yeah,
performing in the
it,
dressing room.
he had a bit of a
Um,
disaster. He should never have left Wickham. He had a disaster spell there.
He did. So I think he's done a pretty good job at QPR, but he's the overwhelming favourite. Ryan Mason, obviously, was he the one who was at Spurs for a bit? It was the Spurs
Yeah, he's
assistant
always
manager.
Spurs caretaker manager. Well, he might get a crack at the Spurs gig in a couple of weeks if they
Well,
sack Ange.
that's true. That's true.
He
Gary
might be managing a
O'Neill,
Europa League final. You never know.
that would be interesting. Gary O'Neill obviously was at Wolves. Could kind of see the logic there. I don't know if he's local, would make sense.
Surely he wouldn't
Sean,
do Wolves West Brom. Surely he's smart enough not to do that.
if
Surely.
McLeish and Bruce can do Blues Villa, I
Yeah,
don't.
but
Well, to be fair, they
The
didn't go very
McLeish one
well. To
was
be fair,
the
yeah.
well, at least the Bruce left like 15 years or whatever it was between doing those jobs. 10 years between doing those
I
jobs.
suppose there is a history like Rafa Benitez at Everton was just
Yeah,
doomed to fail.
Gary
Um,
O'Neill at West Brom is doomed to fail, and I'm sure, didn't he manage that derby like a year ago or something? Actually, he'd be nuts to do that.
I don't. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. I don't disagree. It's just what the bookies are saying. Sean Dyche is right there. That would be a class appointment. I just don't know if it would happen for them at
I
all.
can't see it.
I don't think Baggies are that appealing. And then the last sort of one on this little list was Liam Rosenior, who would be great, but I believe he's just signed a new contract or a contract extension with where's he gone? He's gone abroad somewhere, isn't
He's in
he?
France, isn't he? Is
He
it
is,
Strasbourg
yes.
or Lens? It's the Chelsea feeder
Strasbourg.
club. Strasbourg. It's the
Strasbourg.
Chelsea feeder club, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, I can't see that happening. I think he'd have been great. So that's a
I
shame.
agree.
So Baggies fans, if anyone's watching or listening, let us know who you'd like. That'd be interesting. And I think that just about wraps us up, Cal.
Yeah, I think it does as well. It's great to be back on. Feels like we had a little hiatus, but
Yes,
we're back in for the run-in. We've got 4 games to go. You've got a couple of games to go, and I
yeah,
mean, you're almost on the beach.
we are
And
very close to the beach. Can almost
yeah,
feel the
if you weren't
sand.
going for a
Yes.
points record, you'd have been on the beach. It would have felt like you were on the beach weeks ago.
It would have absolutely. I
Um,
guess we'll be back very shortly, though, Cal. And in the
yeah.
meantime, take care, keep right on, and shit on the Villa.
See you next week, Dan, and up the Villa.